In the vast darkness of space, aboard the colossal flagship of the Galactic Federation, Admiral Kexthor slammed his crystalline appendage against the holographic display, causing the entire command center to fall silent. The countless battles he'd overseen across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy had never prepared him for the absurdity before his eyes. Another human victory. This time, a single Earth transport vessel had somehow managed to outmaneuver and escape from an entire battle fleet of his most advanced ships. "This is impossible," he roared, his bioluminescent patterns flashing in shades of crimson and amber that reflected his mounting frustration. The other high-ranking officials in the room shifted uncomfortably, their own color patterns dulled in shared embarrassment. "How do they keep doing this? They're supposed to be a primitive species." The science officer, a tall, willowy being with iridescent scales, stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, I've been analyzing the data from our encounters with humans over the past solar cycle. The results are disturbing." She gestured, bringing up a series of comparison charts that filled the chamber's curved walls. "Their adaptability defies all known evolutionary patterns. They survive in environments that should kill them instantly. Their endurance rivals that of species from high-gravity worlds 3 times Earth's mass." Admiral Kexthor's secondary eyes narrowed as he studied the data. The humans had emerged from their insignificant solar system barely 50 years ago, and already they'd established themselves as an unprecedented anomaly in the galactic community. Their ships were crewed by Federation standards, their technology was centuries behind the galactic average, and yet... "Look at this footage from the mining colony incident," the science officer continued, playing a holographic recording. "These humans worked for 36 standard hours straight in toxic atmospheric conditions to save both their crew and our colonists. Their bodies should have given out after 4 hours maximum. And here," she switched to another recording, "a human diplomat survived an assassination attempt by metabolizing a poison that kills 99.9% of known species instantly. She claimed it just gave her a mild headache." The Admiral's color patterns shifted to a deep blue of contemplation. He remembered his first encounter with humans 5 years ago. He dismissed them as barely spaceworthy, their ships held together with what might as well have been string and hope. Now, watching the compilation of their impossible feats, a chilling realization began to form. "Sir," a young tactical officer spoke up, his voice trembling slightly. "The latest reports indicate they've started sharing their coffee with other species. 3 of our most disciplined warrior races have become completely dependent on it. They claim it enhances their combat performance by 300%. The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Admiral Kexthor raised all 4 arms, demanding silence. "So let me understand this correctly," he began, his voice dangerously quiet. "We're dealing with a species that can survive almost any environment, heal from nearly any injury, go days without sleep, metabolize deadly toxins, and now they're spreading their chemical enhancements to other races." "There's more, sir," the science officer added hesitantly. "They call these abilities normal. According to their historical records, they developed these traits just trying to survive on their home planet. They don't even realize how extraordinary they are by galactic standards." The Admiral stared out at the star-filled viewport, watching the distant glimmer of Earth's sector. The humans had no idea they were being observed, no idea that their every achievement was sending shockwaves through the galactic community. They just kept pushing forward, breaking every rule of what should be possible, treating the impossible as just another Tuesday. "Mark my words," Admiral Kexthor declared, his color patterns now shifting to the rare silver of prophecy. "These humans will either be the greatest allies the Federation has ever known, or they will be our undoing. The question is, which path will they choose?" The silence that followed the Admiral's words was broken by an urgent alert from the ship's AI. A new report was streaming in from the Perseus arm. Another human incident had just occurred. The holographic display flickered to life, showing footage from a remote mining outpost where a geological disaster had trapped hundreds of workers underground. "Sir, you need to see this," the science officer whispered, her scales shifting to a pale shade of disbelief. The footage showed a small human maintenance crew, who had been there to repair some basic equipment, leading an impossible rescue operation. The humans were literally digging through solid rock with makeshift tools, surviving in pockets of toxic gas that should have killed them instantly. Their singing, one of the junior officers noted, his antenna twitching in confusion. Indeed, the humans were belting out something they called rock and roll, while performing their feat of impossible endurance. They're treating it like some sort of game. Admiral Kexthor watched as the humans, covered in dust and grime, emerged from the caverns carrying injured miners of various species. According to the medical data scrolling across the screen, the humans had been awake for over 50 hours straight, sustained only by their mysterious coffee and something they called pizza. What's even more remarkable, the science officer continued, pulling up additional data, is their problem-solving methodology. When their cutting tools failed, they literally created an explosive from cleaning supplies and snack foods. The chemical composition shouldn't have been possible, yet somehow they improvised. The Admiral finished, his color patterns swirling with a mix of awe and concern. Just like they always do, he brought up the Federation's classified human observation files, which had grown exponentially over the past few years. Look at this pattern. Every time we think we understand their limitations, they surprise us. The tactical officer cleared his throat nervously. There's something else, sir. Remember that educational exchange program we started last cycle? Well, the humans have been teaching their young ones about space exploration. They're calling it summer camp. He projected another recording, showing human children easily grasping concepts that took other species decades to master. Their offspring are even more adaptable than the adults, the science officer noted. They're learning our most advanced technologies through what they call trial and error, basically breaking things until they figure out how they work. And the most terrifying part? They're having fun doing it. Admiral Kexthor paced the command center, his forearms clasped behind his back. Have we determined how they developed these abilities? Surely some advanced species must have engineered them. That's just it, sir, the science officer interrupted, pulling up Earth's historical records. They did this to themselves. Their planet tried to kill them countless times. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. And each time, they not only survived but came back stronger. They call it human ingenuity, but it's more like controlled chaos. The Admiral stopped at the viewport, watching as another human ship casually broke at least 3 laws of physics while delivering emergency supplies to a distant colony. And now they're out here, among the stars, bringing that chaos with them. Did you know they recently taught the hive mind of Sector 7 how to play something called baseball? The entire collective consciousness is obsessed with it. Sir, the tactical officer spoke up again. What if they're not the primitive species we thought they were? What if all this time, while we were advancing our technology, they were evolving into something else entirely? Something that doesn't play by the rules because they never learned there were rules in the first place. Before the Admiral could respond, another alert flashed across the screen. Somewhere in the Orion Arm, a human exploration vessel had just made first contact with a previously unknown species, and somehow, impossibly, they were already sharing something called chocolate chip cookies with them. Admiral Kexthor's command center had transformed into a circus of chaos as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The newly contacted species, dubbed the Crystallites, had not only embraced human cookies but had also discovered something called Pizza Night. In less than a standard week, they had completely restructured their crystal-based society to ensure that every Friday was dedicated to this strange human ritual. It's happening again, the science officer muttered, her scales now a kaleidoscope of worried colors, just like with the hive mind and baseball, or the quantum collective and their newfound obsession with human soap operas. She pulled up a galaxy-wide map showing the spread of human influence. It looked like a viral infection spreading through the cosmos at an alarming rate. But it wasn't the cultural contamination that had the Admiral's color patterns shifting to emergency crimson. No, it was the latest incident report from the Andromeda border. A human cargo ship carrying nothing more threatening than farming equipment and something called classic rock albums had accidentally stumbled into a restricted zone. They'd encountered one of the most dangerous phenomena in known space, a Class 5 temporal storm. No ship has ever survived direct contact with a temporal storm, the tactical officer stated, his antenna drooping. The time distortions tear apart even our most advanced vessels. Surely the humans couldn't. His words were cut off by new footage streaming in. The human ship, instead of being torn apart, was surfing the temporal waves. Their primitive shields had somehow adapted to the impossible conditions, and the crew was treating the whole experience like some kind of extreme sport. They could be heard cheering over the comm channels. "They're using the temporal distortions to boost their engine efficiency," the science officer whispered in disbelief. "They've turned one of the most deadly phenomena in space into a propulsion system. How did they even think to try that?" Admiral Kexthor sank into his command chair, all four hands massaging his temples. "Because nobody told them it was impossible," he said quietly. "Just like nobody told them they couldn't digest poison, or survive in vacuum for just a few minutes, or turn their deadly homeworld into a paradise through sheer stubbornness." The situation grew even more complicated as reports came in from the Federation's diplomatic corps. The humans had somehow convinced the ancient and technologically superior Arcturians to try something called karaoke night. The footage showed dignified, millennium-old beings enthusiastically belting out human songs about breaking hearts and Sweet Caroline. "Sir," a communications officer interrupted, her tentacles twisted in anxiety, "we're detecting massive movements in the uncharted regions. The species we've never been able to contact, the ones who've ignored us for centuries. They're all heading toward human space." The admiral watched as thousands of ships from dozens of mysterious civilizations changed course, all drawn toward Earth's sector like moths to a flame. But what truly chilled him was the message they were broadcasting on all frequencies. "We heard humans have something called memes and cat videos. We wish to participate." It's not just their physical capabilities, the science officer realized, her voice trembling. Their true power isn't in their endurance or adaptability. It's their ability to make the impossible seem not just possible, but fun. They're not conquering the galaxy. They're turning it into one giant human party. Admiral Kexthor stood up, his color patterns now showing a completely new shade that the ship's computer couldn't even classify. The humans were about to gain access to technology and knowledge from species that had ignored the Federation for millennia, all because they wanted to share jokes and pet videos. The balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift dramatically, and it all started with cookies and rock and roll. "Send an emergency signal to High Command," he ordered, knowing that what he was about to report would sound absolutely insane. The humans aren't just surviving anymore. They're about to change everything, and I don't think the galaxy is ready for what comes next. As Admiral Kexthor awaited High Command's response, the science officer's urgent voice cut through the tense atmosphere. "Sir, you need to see this immediately." She projected a new hologram showing a distant corner of the galaxy where something unprecedented was unfolding. The humans had somehow convinced a group of energy beings, creatures that had never before shown interest in physical matter, to try something called dancing. "That's impossible," the tactical officer stammered, his antenna fully erect in shock. "The Energy Collective has existed in pure energy form for millions of years. They've never—" His voice trailed off as they watched the energy beings attempt to form temporary physical manifestations, all to experience what the humans called the electric slide. But that wasn't even the most alarming development. The latest data streams showed that human children, in their endless curiosity, had started teaching young aliens from various species how to play tag in zero gravity. This seemingly innocent game had led to the accidental discovery of a new form of faster-than-light travel, based entirely on the physics of playground games. "They're not even trying to make revolutionary discoveries," the science officer observed, her scales shifting to a color of bewildered amazement. "They're just playing around and accidentally reshaping our understanding of the universe. Yesterday, a human child asked why we couldn't just skip our ships across space like stones on a pond, and now 3 of our top research facilities are investigating the concept." The Admiral's response was interrupted by a priority alert from the ship's eye. The mysterious ancient artifacts that had been studied fruitlessly by Federation scientists for centuries were suddenly activating. All of them, simultaneously, across the galaxy. The cause? Human social media influencers had started a trend of making funny faces at the artifacts, and somehow the ancient technology was responding to their ridiculous expressions. "Sir," the communications officer called out, her tentacles now tied in actual knots from stress, "the Quantum Collective is requesting an emergency conference. They claim humans have introduced them to something called dad jokes, and it's causing quantum fluctuations across their entire civilization. They're not angry about it. They're asking for more." Admiral Kexthor watched as the galactic map before him transformed. The neat, ordered patterns of space traffic were dissolving into chaos as ships from every species changed course, all trying to reach human space. Some wanted to learn this dancing, others were desperate for more memes, and an alarming number were specifically requesting something called pizza and movie night. The humans have done more than change everything. He realized, his color patterns shifting to a shade that indicated both fear and awe. They'd made the galaxy fun. Do you understand what this means? Civilizations that have been stagnant for millennia are suddenly acting like excited younglings, all because humans showed them it's okay to play. But the true gravity of the situation hit when the science officer discovered something in the latest data streams. The humans weren't just sharing their culture and accidentally revolutionizing science. They were inadvertently creating something entirely new. Every species that came into contact with humans was starting to exhibit trace amounts of human adaptability and creativity. "It's like they're infecting the galaxy with their impossibility," the tactical officer whispered. "But instead of destroying everything, they're making everyone else more human." Before anyone could process this revelation, every screen in the command center suddenly lit up with a new alert. Somewhere in the uncharted regions, a human exploration vessel had just made contact with what they described as space dragons, and instead of running away in terror, they were apparently trying to teach them how to do something called fist bumps. Admiral Kexthor sank back into his command chair, watching as the galaxy he'd known for centuries transformed before his eyes. The humans weren't just changing the rules of the game, they were teaching everyone else that rules were more like guidelines anyway. And the most terrifying part? It was working. "May the cosmic forces help us all," he muttered, as reports came in of humans introducing the concept of weekend barbecues to a species that literally ate starlight. They're not going to just change the galaxy. They're going to make it impossible to change it back. The command center erupted in chaos as High Command's response finally arrived, but it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of orders or reprimands, the transmission contained only laughter. The most ancient and dignified members of the Federation's ruling council had apparently discovered human memes themselves, and their response included something called a GIF of a cat knocking things off a table, apparently meant to represent the humans' effect on galactic civilization. "Sir," the tactical officer called out, his antenna now permanently twisted into a question mark shape. "The space dragons the humans encountered, they've started a social media account. They're posting videos of themselves doing tricks with their plasma breath, and it's going viral across 17 sectors." But before Admiral Kexthor could process this information, the science officer's scales turned pure white, a sign of absolute astonishment. The Energy Collective, they figured out how to maintain physical form long enough to attend something called a rock concert. They're requesting Federation support to organize a galactic music festival. The situation reached its peak when the mysterious ancient artifacts, now fully activated by human silliness, revealed their true purpose. They weren't weapons or tools of conquest as everyone had feared. They were, as one human child had casually suggested while making funny faces at them, giant space party planners left behind by a long-gone civilization that apparently shared humanity's love of celebration. "The artifacts are connecting," the science officer exclaimed. "They're creating a network of fun across the galaxy. The ancient civilization didn't die out. They ascended to a higher plane of existence through the power of joy and celebration, and the humans just accidentally figured out their entire philosophy by trying to make everyone laugh. Admiral Kexthor watched as the impossible became reality. Months later, Admiral Kexthor stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching something that would have given his younger self a panic attack. Space dragons were performing aerial ballet with human fighter pilots, their plasma breaths creating spectacular light shows against the backdrop of stars. Below them, on an artificially constructed space platform dubbed the Galactic Block Party Central, beings from across the cosmos were gathered in what could only be described as the universe's biggest celebration. The Energy Collective had become the galaxy's most sought-after dance performers, their light-based bodies creating displays that made Aurora Borealis look dull in comparison. They'd even started a dance academy, teaching other species how to get their groove on, a phrase that had somehow made its way into the official Federation dictionary. "Sir," his science officer approached, her scales now permanently shifted to display what humans called tie-dye patterns, a fashion trend that had somehow spread across species that didn't even have scales. The latest reports show that productivity across all Federation worlds has actually increased by 300% since we stopped trying to regulate fun. Turns out, happy workers really do work better. The Admiral nodded, watching as a group of quantum physicists played hopscotch across multiple dimensions, a game invented by human children that had accidentally solved several fundamental problems in space-time theory. "And the cats?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. "The space dragons have officially adopted every cat in human space as their cousins," she reported, trying to hide her amusement. "They've started a social media empire together. Their videos of knocking things off increasingly higher platforms have become the galaxy's most watched entertainment." Below them, the ancient artifacts had transformed the space platform into something the humans called a theme park, complete with rides that bent reality in ways that should have been terrifying but somehow just added to the fun. The hive mind had become the galaxy's most enthusiastic roller coaster enthusiasts, their collective consciousness splitting into individual screams of joy on every loop. "You know what the humans call all of this?" the Admiral asked, gesturing at the cosmic celebration before them. "They call it Tuesday. To them, this level of impossible is just normal." Just then, a transmission came through from Earth. The humans had a new idea they wanted to share with the galaxy, something called karaoke battle robots. The Admiral didn't even try to understand it anymore. He just approved it immediately, knowing it would somehow make everything even better. Perhaps, he mused, watching as a group of previously warlike species engaged in an intense competition of musical chairs overseen by break-dancing energy beings. This is what the galaxy needed all along. Not order, not rules, but joy. The science officer nodded, her scales shimmering with happiness. "The humans didn't just show us how to have fun, sir. They showed us how to be brave enough to try impossible things, to laugh at our failures, and to celebrate our successes together." As the Admiral prepared to join the festivities below, he'd become quite good at something called the robot dance. He received one final report. The cats and space dragons had somehow taught the ancient artifacts to purr, and the resulting vibrations were creating tiny pockets of pure happiness throughout the galaxy. "You know what the humans would say about all this?" he asked his crew, his color patterns displaying what could only be described as pure joy. "They'd say that tracks." He'd never fully understood what that phrase meant, but like everything else the humans had brought to the galaxy, it just felt right. And so, as the greatest party in cosmic history continued around them, Admiral Kexthor finally understood the true power of humanity. It wasn't their strength, their adaptability, or even their impossible abilities. It was their capacity to make the entire universe feel like home, one ridiculous, wonderful, impossible moment at a time.